US policeman jailed for murdering Australian woman Justine Bruschek. A party bus goes up in flames on Sydney's M4. Tempers flare in the night's win over the Rabbitohs.
Look at this!
And Ash Barty snatches victory from the jaws of defeat.
Ash Barty into the Roland Garros final.
This is NBN News with Tyson Cottrill.
Good evening. I caused this tragedy and it's my burden. Those were the words from Mohammed Noor as he was sentenced to more than 12 years jail for killing Sydney bride-to-be Justine Bruschek. The former police officer apologised to her family as Justine's fiancé fought back tears, describing his happy future lost forever.
Mohammed Noor's fight to avoid jail is over.
I hereby commit you the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 150 months.
12 and a half years prison for the former policeman, despite one last plea for mercy minutes earlier.
I will think about Miss Bruschek and her family forever.
Noor's shift partner was among those inside the packed Minnesota courtroom as he described in detail killing Australian meditation coach Justine Bruschek.
The moment I pulled the trigger, I felt fear. When I walked around, I saw Miss Bruschek dying on the ground. I felt horror.
And he reveals that in an instant, he knew he was wrong.
Working to save her life and watching her slip away is a feeling I can't explain.
The convicted killer listened to how those moments haunt Justine's fiancé, who penned his victim impact statement in the form of a letter to his future bride.
Every time I went in that alley, I saw you walking barefoot in your pajamas toward that police car. In my mind, I beg you to turn around.
He wipes a tear, recalling how he saw her wedding dress 1 week after she died.
I got to touch it as I cried. Alone in the shop where you purchased it.
The prosecution played this video with messages from lifelong friends and her brother.
She was a wonderful aunt and kids loved her. They called her Auntie Peanut.
Her laughter, her hugs, her holding my hand.
And this from Noor 2 years on.
I have owed Miss Bruschek's family an apology for a long time. I did write them a letter while in jail, and now I apologize in person.
But for Judge Quaintance, that wasn't enough.
He does not take personal responsibility for making an erroneous decision to fire a gun at her.
As Mohammed Noor learned his fate, he barely reacted before he was taken into custody. But as you can see outside the courtroom, this case is far from over. In fact, members of the Somalian community here are now demanding that the head prosecutor get the sack.
And I said, use lies to convict black men here and throughout this country.
Noor's legal team will almost certainly appeal, in a statement saying, "We are not done fighting for Mohammed Noor." Ominous words that could drag out what's already been an excruciating time for his victim's family.
I love you and I'll miss you forever, Justine.
Alexis Daish, NBN News.
It's been revealed federal police dropped an investigation into a leak described by ASIO as seriously damaging. The opposition, which has been calling for an inquiry into classified documents becoming public, today also coming under fire.
At the height of heated debate over border security,
It will result in the boats restarting.
splashed across a front page classified documents about the potential impacts of a crossbench bill to transfer sick asylum seekers off Manus Island and Nauru.
I'll tell you something about classified advice. It's classified for a reason. And it's not meant to be read about in the newspaper.
Today, fresh scrutiny into the leak as 9 newspapers revealed the Australian Federal Police quietly abandoned an investigation.
We have leaks of information that embarrass the government. They get investigated. But when it comes to a leak of information that would benefit the government, there is not the same vigour.
The matter was referred to police by the Home Affairs Secretary, Mike Pizzullo, and yet despite the head of Australia's top spy agency labelling it seriously damaging, the AFP opted against a full investigation due to the limited prospects of identifying a suspect.
Well, there aren't too many people had that national security advice. Peter Dutton, the minister, was on radio talking about that advice.
And in another matter that is being investigated, it's been revealed the government wasn't the only one seeking answers over a story written by News Corporation journalist Annika Smethurst. Shadow Attorney General Mark Dreyfus calling on then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull to establish an investigation into how such sensitive information held by members of your government was able to find its way into the public domain.
It is not a question of whether or not leaks should be investigated. It is a question about how the government is managing that.
Early Walsh, NBN News.
A group of young partygoers had a lucky escape in Sydney's west overnight after their bus caught fire on the M4. 16 people fled the burning vehicle as fire crews were called in to battle the flames.
The party was over as flames erupted from the bus just after 2 o'clock this morning. It was taking a group of young people home along the M4 at Clyde when the driver says he heard a bang and pulled over.
It was a massive spark. We thought it was a camera flash or something. We looked back, just a flame came out like as if like a gas or something exploded.
The fire spread quickly and engulfed the back of the vehicle. 16 people on board had to evacuate as emergency crews were called. Firefighters got to work battling the flames for almost an hour as paramedics checked for anyone injured.
Fortunately, no one was injured by the flames or by the smoke. At this stage, we've assessed 16 people, and 2 of those have needed to be taken to Westmead Hospital due to alcohol-related injuries.
The rest of the passengers were taken home on a replacement bus organised by the same transport company. Firefighters are investigating the cause of the blaze, but it was clearly all part of the fun for the group that made a lucky escape. Hannah Sinclair, NBN News.
He's accused of killing 4 people, and tonight we can show you the alleged gunman behind Darwin's mass shooting walking into the final venue during the rampage. 3 people were already dead when Ben Hoffman was seen emerging from a ute with a shotgun at a complex on Tuesday evening. The 45-year-old faces 4 murder charges and will be back in court in September. A man has been knocked unconscious and placed in an induced coma after a fight broke out inside a Sydney pub. His condition in hospital has since rapidly improved, and tonight police are trying to find the person who attacked him.
It's the worst possible end to a night out.
It's completely unacceptable. Violence in any time is unacceptable, but especially in a public place, and if it's alcohol related, that just makes it worse in my opinion.
A fight that started inside the Burwood Hotel just before 5 a.m. ended outside with a 31-year-old unconscious on the pavement with critical head injuries.
When we got there, he was still unconscious. He had been unconscious for some time. The medical team placed him in an induced coma.
His frantic brother had to be subdued by police as others involved in the fight were seen running from the scene. The hotel quickly became a crime scene as police began the hunt for a man who they believe is responsible for the violence.
We are seeking assistance in locating one of the offenders for this assault. He's described as being a male of large build, about 30 to 35 years old, wearing a grey tracksuit top and blue jeans.
The victim was rushed here to Royal Prince Alfred Hospital fighting for life, but against all odds, his condition has today improved and he's now expected to make a full recovery. A somewhat lucky end to a night authorities say could have easily turned deadly.
It's unnecessary, there's no reason for it, and it's definitely life-changing.
Jared Brevy, NBN News.
Flights have been cancelled and passengers forced to wait for hours as Sydney Airport was hit by its heaviest fog in 6 years. In the suburbs, visibility was as low as 50 metres, while in the city, high-rise buildings looked as though they were sitting on islands in the sky.
A few brave buildings coming up for air. The long weekend hangover that Sydney just couldn't seem to shake.
Even the top of the Opera House is in the fog, it's so low.
The fog at Sydney Airport was the worst it's been so late in the day for 6 years. The departures board at the domestic terminal telling a tale of frustration. Some flights cancelled while others were delayed by up to 3 hours.
All flights just coming in and out and delayed, so it's annoying.
Flight was delayed from 2 o'clock to 3:30. Not very happy.
As motorists trudged along the harbour bridge seemingly leading to nowhere. For paddleboarders at Maroubra, it was hard to tell where the sea ended and the sky began. And as dawn rose, tourists here to see our famous sights woke to find landmarks playing hide and seek.
I have to wait till it lifts to do my sightseeing.
Visibility was down to 50 metres at Bankstown and at Richmond, 100 metres at Canterbury and 200 metres at Mascot, thanks to recent rain and cooler temperatures. No building was safe from the fog's grip, with skyscrapers at Parramatta cut in half, homes at Milson's Point disappearing. Our faithful ferries tackling the grey gloom under the harbour bridge, and a lonely sailing boat was up against it. But it didn't deter one committed cyclist or a handful of early risers. Well, despite the sun being up for several hours now, our famous landmarks are still teasing us through a layer of white. Cool temperatures and a lack of wind, meaning this dream world is lingering a little longer.
On a sunny day, fog would clear much quicker because the sun would help to warm it up and evaporate. Tomorrow we have the same sort of conditions.
A perfect weekend to stay tucked up as the spooky spectacle looks set to take over for a second day.
What used to be a bungalow now resembles a bomb site. A family, including 4 children, were sleeping in their home when they woke to find their bungalow up in flames in Mornington, Victoria. Detectives believe fireworks are to blame, with a man on the run and 1 woman in hospital. 2 Central Coast men have faced court in Wagga Wagga after they were allegedly caught with more than 19 kilograms of cannabis in their car on the Sturt Highway. Both have been granted bail. Emergency crews were called to 2 separate accidents on the Hunter Expressway yesterday within an hour of each other. 2 cars collided at Lower Belford, then a man had to be freed from his vehicle, while at Greta, a car towing a caravan suddenly flipped. 2 people suffered minor injuries and were taken to John Hunter Hospital. The accidents happened less than 20 kilometres apart. The Labor Roadshow rolled into Newcastle today as the battle for the state leadership continues. Member for Cogra, Chris Minns, pitched against his opponent, Gloucesterbourne, and raised Jodie McKay, who knew exactly what her Novocastrian supporters needed to hear.
Back where it all began, Jodie McKay with the home ground advantage.
I know the Hunter. You know, I grew up here. I had 20 years as a journalist and an MP. The Hunter is very special to me.
And the member for Strathfield used that advantage during her pitch for Alternative Premier, hitting the right notes for the local rank and file.
If I am successful as leader, you will see manufacturing projects here in the Hunter region. You will see trains constructed in areas like the Hunter that will be stamped with "Made in New South Wales" for New South Wales.
Debating her stable partner Chris Minns for the Labor leadership, outlining their vision for the party, the region and the state.
I think if we can have a dynamic plan that focuses on jobs and economic growth in a very uncertain economic climate, then we can capture the initiative of the people of this state.
But the major point of difference remains the issue that's plagued Labor since the federal election, as the party sets out to recalibrate its Hunter roots.
You will not hear me talk about climate change and renewable energy without talking about jobs. Those people who walk into a coal mine, they don't do that thinking they're damaging the environment. They do that because they're putting food on the table for their families.
Yes, it is part of the renewable energy target, but 80 to 90% of what's dug up is exported. So the Labor Party can have a long, detailed discussion about coal and the implications on the environment, but if the world spins away from coal, then regions like the Hunter are in trouble.
2 candidates, 2 different roads ahead. Stephen Mount, NBN News.